Welcome to People in Print, a video segment that highlights studio members of Zea Mays Printmaking located in Florence, Mass. Our featured artist is Louise Kohrman, whose intaglio prints occupy a quiet and contemplative realm. Kohrman works with translucent Gompi papers and often incorporates cotton thread and needlework. For one of Kohrman's most striking pieces, entitled Forever on the Mind, the artist pins over 700 small intaglio prints to the wall, forming a 2-foot diameter circle. This piece, most recently shown at APE Gallery in Northampton, Mass., is a visual display of Kohrman's meditative process. Our conversation with Kohrman will explore her use of pattern, repetition, multiplicity, and interconnectedness in the present moment. Well, thank you, Louise, for coming to speak with me about your work.
Thank you.
The first piece I'd actually like to talk about is the one that I just mentioned, called Forever on the Mind. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is, can you describe why you selected that shape and why the scale of it?
Absolutely. So I have been exploring the circle in my work as a means to actually create work. I work with very meditative processes, and so when I draw, I've actually been using the circle as a drawing element in my line, and so the little prints that are pinned to the wall also contain little mini circles in them, and then they're printed and cut up and then molded into concave and convex circle shapes that are then also pinned in a circle. So I always start with a midpoint, so I place one pinned print as a starting point, a main focus or axis, and then work in a circular format around that. And for me, that's a very grounding process, a very grounding way of working. It's introspective, and it allows me to reach a place of solitude as I work, and hopefully is something that's relayed to the viewer as they view the work.
So when a viewer sees the piece, you sort of want to give them the sense of that focal point in the middle.
Exactly, but also the space sort of receding and enveloping the viewer too, so that you feel, or so that one feels that they can really experience it almost as an environment. So they're viewing it, but they're also being one with the piece and really experiencing it in that way.
Can you describe a little bit how you arrived at the circle, and also giving it depth in that conical shape of actually cutting it and then creating?
Sure. It's actually I find it interesting that I work with the circle now, because for a long while I was always working within the square. But I feel like the circle is a more complete or wholesome shape in that there's no beginning and no end. So it's also this idea of infinity. You don't really know where the starting point is when you draw it. But it's also this idea of obtaining perfection.
But that's another really interesting point, because like when I saw the work at APE, I got the sense that you become part of the object.
Right.
But I didn't consider the fact that, was it actual perfect sphere on the wall?
It wasn't, no. So it's this idea of trying to get at that. And as I'm pinning each pin, I'm constantly standing back and looking and then getting up close. But there's so many levels to that idea of perfection within this piece, because there's the circles that are very faintly printed with silver ink on the actual paper. Then there's the cutout of the form, which I actually do by hand. And people have suggested to me, well, why don't you just use a circle cutter or get them die cut? And at this point in the process, that seems completely, in contrast to what it is I'm trying to achieve. There's something very purposeful about trying to cut them into a circle with my bare hand and then pinning them in a perfect circle on the wall.
Do you feel like after this project and in the future, you're obtaining that sort of perfection? I
don't know if you can ever obtain it. I think you can I think, again, it's this endless pursuit where you're trying to find peace along the way. And that's what I'm trying to do.